How's it, guys? This is Dayvy FC and welcome back to the Euro 2020 fantasy video. Now in this video we're going to be taking a look at my own team selection going into game week 3. Why am I going to be using the wild card? Am I not? We're going to be talking about all that in this video. Starting off, we're going to be going over game week 2 and how my team is progressing so far, as well as talking about changes going into the final match day of game week 2. We're then going to shift our attention to game week 3, first covering the chip strategy, mentioning what chips I could potentially use in game week 3, as well as chips for later in the season, and whether we should be using chips at all in the upcoming game week. We're then going to turn our attention to the actual team selection and my current wild card draft. Yes, a little bit of a spoiler alert there. We are potentially going to be using the wild card going into that game week 3 deadline, which happens tomorrow. So hopefully I do see you guys in the deadline stream as well. But if you're interested to see the team, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into this video. So starting off with game week 2, as you've probably seen in the title of this video, we're actually doing relatively well this Euro 2020 fantasy season. Currently in the top 5,000 players. Obviously, I still know that we have some fixtures to go, but with Jordi Alba, Kylian Mbappe, and Antoine Griezmann to come off the bench today, I think that rank could be boosted up a little bit. In terms of the captaincy, unfortunately, those French assets and that Spanish defender, Jordi Alba, aren't going to be enough for me to shift the captaincy. If you guys did watch the deadline stream or have been following the channel this previous game week, we did end up captaining Gareth Bale, and oh my word, what a roller coaster of emotions there if you guys did own Gareth Bale, and even worse if you captain him like me. So first of all, Gareth Bale could have had about a hat-trick of assists in the first half. Aaron Ramsey could have had a hat-trick of goals in the first half, but unfortunately Ramsey managed to miss 2 one-on-one chances. I know, quite frustrating there as a Gareth Bale owner, but then he actually ends up getting a couple points, but unfortunately he misses a penalty as well. So that was quite infuriating because he won the penalty, so he would have got 2 points, and then if he scored the penalty he would have got even more. But what happens? He absolutely skies it top left. I don't know if he was going for a pitching wedge or maybe a sand wedge, but definitely wasn't the right club to take that penalty, and he actually cancelled out that 2 points that he managed to win the penalty with, which actually didn't affect us that much, I guess, because it wasn't a negative gain from that penalty at all. But 9 points from Gareth Bale overall is something that I want to stick with, especially going into the last match day of the game week. While I do think that Kylian Mbappe and Antoine Griezmann have the potential to outscore them, I would rather just sit back, have my 9 points, and let Mbappe and Griezmann get as many points as possible, instead of kind of trying to predict who out of those French forwards would score the most points. If you guys haven't got a captaincy return and are looking to switch it up, I would recommend one of the French attackers, whether it be Benzema, Mbappe, or Griezmann. I think that Mbappe is the more explosive option, has the high ceiling out of all of those players. So if you want to go for a more ambitious, a more out there captain, go with Mbappe, whereas I think Griezmann is the more consistent option where you probably will get a more consistent return. And that's just because he is playing in that midfield cam slot, whereas Mbappe, Benzema are playing up front. So I think if they do score a goal, probably Griezmann will be involved somehow, whether it be a goal or an assist. So I think Griezmann is a sensible option, whereas Mbappe and Benzema are the more explosive options. So you guys just have to decide how you do it, and it is actually quite a tough decision. So I'm almost happy that I'm sticking with Gareth Bale, and I can just enjoy that France versus Hungary game for what it is with the players that I do own. So that's enough about game week 2. I just wanted to give you guys an update of my captaincy, because a lot of people have been asking me on Twitter, am I going to be switching to Mbappe, am I going to be switching to Griezmann, or am I going to be sticking with Gareth Bale? And I am going to be sticking with the Welsh golfer. Now going on to chip strategy, and the first thing I want to say is that if you guys do have the limitless chip, please do use it in this game week. The reason I'm saying that is, one, the group stages have the highest ceiling for a chip strategy points return, whether it be a wild card or a limitless. And second of all, you really don't want to use the limitless in the latter stages of the knockouts, because what happens, it's only a 1 game week chip. So let's say use it in the quarterfinals, your semi-final team will be your round of 16 team. Just think about how much of a disaster that's going to be. With about 5 transfers before the semis, you have to get all those round of 16 players out that have been knocked out in the quarters. An absolute disaster there. So guys, please don't make that mistake unless you want to be super maverick and you think that you can absolutely nail it. But I would recommend using the limitless this game week, please. I know that's a little bit tough to kind of think of who's going to be starting with that limitless chip, obviously an unlimited budget, so your mind kind of wanders to selecting the most expensive players, which is perfectly natural, but I would recommend just going for the players that you think will score the most points, whether that be a Lukaku, a Kane. If those players are benched, worst case scenario, just get one of those stacked bench players that you have in your starting 15 off, and that should be fine. It's going to be quite hard, as I mentioned, to predict, but that's exactly the same with the wildcard. And the reason I want to be talking about this chip strategy is that I am kind of diverting from the strategy I mentioned in kind of my first draft video. Why I'm saying that is that in that video I mentioned using the wildcard before the quarterfinals, and now I'm kind of leaning towards using it in game week 3. First of all, I've mentioned already, the highest ceiling for the chip strategy is definitely in the group stages, because on paper, the better teams play the worst teams. In the knockout stages, both those teams could be similar weighted. It could be a really close contest, so not many goals, not many clean sheets, for example. So that's why I think the group stages is where you guys should be using your chip. But if you still want to go for the kind of wild card in the quarterfinals, that's perfectly fine. I think it's more of a safer strategy, whereas using the wild card now is almost the highest ceiling strategy, so more of a maverick strategy. But I would recommend going for it because I think that even if you miss, you still will get a couple of points. Going on to the wild card in the latter stages, and the kind of reason I'm not really looking at it too much is that I did think to myself why I was using it in the latter stages. And the one thing that I kept on coming back to was upsets. So yes, in the round of 16, if there was an upset, then we at least kind of guard ourselves against choosing those knocked out players in the quarterfinals. But when I thought about it, I thought that it has to be a really big upset for me not to get players in the quarterfinals. And the reason I'm saying this is that who are the players that I'm going to be targeting on that wild card that we get for free before the round of 16? I'm going to be going for teams that I think will progress far into the competition. I'm thinking of a France, a Portugal. I predicted France to win the entire Euro 2020. Go check that video out if you haven't checked it out. But I think France will go quite late into this tournament. So I would pick French players because then I don't have to waste my transfers on bringing French players in, even if they don't have the best round of 16 fixture, to be honest. So French players that are going to go far, that's the first options that I will have. And then secondly, I'll have options that have a good fixture. Let's say, for example, Netherlands have Finland. I know that's not a realistic example, but just imagine that in the round of 16. So one, I don't really think Netherlands will progress that far, but they have a really good round of 16 fixture. So I'm going to be targeting them. I'm going to be bringing 3 or 4 options from that Netherlands side in to really target that fixture. So it's going to have to be a massive upset for it really to hinder our squad that much. So either France are going to have to lose, either a Finland are going to have to beat Netherlands, which might not be that unpredictable, but I do think that that's a major upset in my eyes. But then with those 3 transfers, if there is a major upset, we do still have some kind of protection against it, because at least with 3 transfers, that's basically one major upset in my opinion, because then I can take out those 3 Netherlands players, those 3 French players, and bring in options that I think will do well. And when we do look at those round of 16 fixtures, both of those teams that I've spoken about, teams that will go far and teams that have a good fixture, those are probably your better opposition teams. And those players in those respective nations are usually quite expensive. So there is a little bit of a safeguard there. If we do have to get rid of those French players, those Netherlands players, those German, England, whatever players, they will still be quite expensive, so we can downgrade them, upgrade them to basically anyone we want. So that's why I think the wildcard later on in the season, and the main thing to use it for was those upsets, might not be actually that good. Now watching the round of 16, there's going to be an upset in every single fixture, and I'm going to be totally wrong, but I'm willing to take that risk and use the wildcard this game week instead of in the knockout stages. Sorry if that was a little bit confusing. I know sometimes I talk a little bit fast, but just kind of take this from it that I don't think the upsets are going to be that bad and are going to hinder our squad in the quarterfinals that much. And if that was your major concern, I think that you might just reevaluate that situation and just look at the options that you might be targeting in that kind of knockout stage free wild card that we do get from the game. In the comments down below, let me know if you have any questions, if you want to kind of debate this topic that I have spoken about, if you think that a wild card in the quarterfinals is the optimum strategy. Comment it down below, give us your thoughts, and I'll be sure to get back to you, and we can have a little bit of a conversation down in the comments below. Now getting on to the wildcard team, as I mentioned in the last talking point, I have decided that I'm going to be using the wildcard in game week 3. I just kind of stick to the deadline stream because I haven't activated it yet, but I will when we do get that Italian lineup, because I think that's going to give us a good indication of how the game week's going to go. If Berardi and Insigne, those sort of players start, I might be swayed a little bit away from the wildcard, because then at least I'll have 3 starters that definitely will play. And we also do get that Switzerland versus the Turkey kind of lineup that I'll talk about in a little bit. But starting off in goal, I've gone for Simon and I've gone for Hiradecky. Hiradeki's only there because he's cheap. I don't think he will keep a clean sheet at all against Belgium, and I'm kind of hoping that he doesn't, because you can see there in midfield, I've gone for Kevin De Bruyne and I've also gone for Eden Hazard. I'm going to talk about the rest of the defense firstly before we get onto the kind of exciting attack. I've gone for Danielson for Sweden against Poland. Sweden actually are playing quite well and not playing the best sort of fixtures. The games are quite boring, to be honest, for Sweden whenever they've played, but that's fine for a 4.5 defender. I want that game to be as boring as possible, because that almost guarantees a clean sheet, to be had. I've got Pau Torres here for Spain. So the one thing I wanted to also mention is that there are games today, 3 fixtures. France play Hungary, Germany play Portugal, and then Spain play Poland. So these 3 games are going to give us a good indication into the Spanish lineup as well as the German lineup, because some of these teams might have wrapped up qualification already, but the reason I favor Spain and Germany is that right now they don't seem to be at the top of the group, and I think they might struggle in these upcoming fixtures. So that's why I think in game week 3 these might be must-win fixtures for them, and that's why I have targeted some Spanish and some German players as well. To complete the defense, I've gone for Boyata and Windel on the bench. So Windel, I think he's a safe option, has come off the bench a lot for those Netherlands games around that 60-minute mark. So I think that North Macedonia fixture is going to be the game week that he does start. And the final defender we do have is Di Lorenzo from Italy. They face Wales, which isn't the best fixture in the world, but the thing is we do get that Italian lineup and that Switzerland lineup. So I think that could be quite valuable to have, because at least we're nailing down some starting 11 players when there could be a lot of rotation in game week 3. So Di Lorenzo, I've gone for Chiesa because I think he'll start instead of Berardi or Insigne, and then also I've gone for Shaqiri on the bench there, because as I mentioned, the Italian and the Switzerland lineups are going to be announced, and those 2 fixtures are quite favorable for those respective nations. So Wales could be quite tough, but I do trust Italy kind of going on an extreme streak here of clean sheets and wins, so I'm favoring them to continue those streaks going into game week 3. Going into the rest of the midfield, I've gone for Wijnaldum. I think in terms of Netherlands options, you really do want to have an attacker against North Macedonia, and with a Memphis Depay, don't know if he's going to start. A Gini Wijnaldum, I think he will start, because I think he's more nailed in that midfield. I don't think he has as much stress of rotation. They have some really good strikers. I think Memphis Depay could be rotated, and Netherlands have basically wrapped up qualification, so they don't have to worry about that too much, but I still think that Gini will start because he's got a really good stamina. He doesn't fatigue a lot, so I think in terms of fitness, he's perfectly fine to start 3 group stages, and I think against North Macedonia, he can do really well. Going on to that lovely double up of Belgium class here, we've got De Bruyne and we've got Eden Hazard. I just really wanted these 2 options because Martinez came out and said that both these 2 players will start against Finland. Now, I don't think they'll play a full 90 minutes, but I think in that 60-70 minutes that they do get, I think that'll be perfectly enough for them, and I think that they have to build up some match fitness before going into these knockouts, and against Finland, I think that Belgium will score a couple. So that's why these 2 players are integral to my lineup, and as well, I don't think Lukaku might start, so that's why I think that De Bruyne, Hazard in that midfield department are perfect kind of substitutes for Lukaku. The forward line I'm actually quite excited about. I've got Mbolo here for Switzerland against Turkey. Now, Turkey haven't looked great this Euro 2020s, so I think that Switzerland have to win this game, and I think they should against Turkey. That's why Mbolo and Shaqiri are both here, and we will get some news if they both start, so we can simply just rotate them if they don't. And then also the next double up, I've gone for Thomas Müller and Timo Werner. You might be asking me, what formation have Germany played with 2 kind of strikers, but my kind of prediction is that they might bench one of Gnabry or Havertz and then play Werner on the wing with Thomas Müller in the front centre forward position, and that's my kind of prediction, and that's why I've gone for Thomas Müller and also Timo Werner, and I think these 2 players should do well against Hungary. Definitely one of the fixtures that you guys should be targeting, but if we do get some more news about that kind of German lineup after tonight's fixture, maybe Timo Werner plays a crack or Thomas Müller gets injured or something, then I will rotate them with either one of Havertz or Gnabry. Just going to have to shift the team around to see how I'm going to fit those players in. Maybe I can drop one of De Bruyne or Hazard to incorporate Havertz or Gnabry, because I think that Germany versus Hungary fixture as a must-win for Germany is going to be quite a high-scoring affair. So this is basically the team that I have come up with. Hopefully I've mentioned every position, spoke about every position, but you guys can drop your comments or drop your wildcard teams down below, and we can run through them, and I can see if I can maybe make some changes going into that game week 3 deadline. I will be doing a deadline stream, so please pay attention for that, because I can't stress enough that we will be getting some news before the deadline. So to secure the team and the kind of selection we're going for, the deadline stream is the best opportunity to get the final team going into that deadline. So this is basically a wrap of the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you're new, have not subscribed yet. As I mentioned, see you guys in the deadline stream where we'll be finalizing the team selection for game week 3. And otherwise, enjoy the fixtures today. I mean, some crackers, some absolute bangers I'm sure we're going to be seeing, starting off with France versus Hungary, where I hope that Mbappe and Griezmann can get us some Euro 2020 fantasy returns. I'm going to be signing off. This has been Dayvy FC, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.